Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the HPC number SKM-2D. This is a key micrometer, direct read they call it. I have it here in my hand, and differs a little bit from the original photograph that the factory has, but it's a very simple and straightforward tool. It is basically a caliper, in the sense that it will give you the information that a caliper will give you. Okay. However, it's really intended specifically for gauging keys, and that may be a downside. Maybe you can make a caliper work, but a caliper will not do the job necessarily the same way, because a caliper has a certain width to the feeler or the jaw, a certain width here, and the width on your micrometer, your HPC SKM2D, is going to be better suited for keys because it doesn't pinch on both ends. It has a pinch on the top end where it will go into the depth of the cut, but then the bottom of the portion that's going to rest on the root of the key is flat. So we'll certainly give you a fairly accurate way to gauge the keys, albeit an expensive way. So the bottom line is, if you have no need to ever determine the root depth of a cut of a key, I don't see a use for it for you, except they're really, nice tools are nice to have, what gets an adult man excited? Really nice tools, and this is certainly a nice tool, SKM2D. Here it is. So there is, first, a visual tour. You've got the front end, you've got the business, and as I rotate my handle, I'm driving that opening. Okay. Right now it's turned off. It's got a clutch mechanism on it that you can hear, so you're not going to damage it. You can turn it much faster with this smaller handle when you're trying to open it up from a closed position. There's no clutch on that. Okay. Now, there is key access on the back. That's going to take a 3-volt battery. You're going to have a little tool here. Kind of want to put that right on your chest. That little flat end of the tool is going to allow you to get that battery cover off without mucking up the plastic cover. There's also a micro USB port in the top. That has nothing to do with anything that you're going to do with it. That's just got something to do with the manufacturing process, probably getting the firmware loaded, calibrating the tool. HPC doesn't manufacture this. They have someone manufacture it for them, naturally, and they couldn't tell me what it's used for, except that it's part of the manufacturing process. It's not where you would plug in a charger. This is a 3-volt battery. Let's take it off and take a look at it. I don't remember. And I put my voltmeter on the battery to make sure the battery was fully charged, absolutely, and ready to go. Bear with me one moment. Okay, we're in good shape. Your CR2032 3-volt battery. Typical impulse aisle at your home center. Even better, buy it from someone online who's a battery specialist, someone who lives and breathes batteries. Pop that back in there. Little gasket around the perimeter of the cover. Because I was having a flaky condition on my unit where it was turning off within a moment or so of turning it on and being otherwise just generally flaky. So I pulled the battery cover off and investigated the tool and found that just reseating the battery solved the problem. Here we go. The battery has to be seated. There's a small little tang that's right here to get the battery seated down properly. Drop that back on, use our tool to lock it back up, and we're in good shape. Okay, now let's take a closer look at it. Now, before we demonstrate the tool, let's go over the instructions, which are linked to down below, as well as included with the tool itself. The HPC Ultimate Micrometer is a precision measuring device. Proper care is required to ensure years of reliable service. This micrometer was calibrated at the factory. However, due to potential rough handling and shipment, we recommend that you verify it is properly calibrated prior to first use and periodically thereafter. Now moving down, it says proper care and calibration verification. Keep the micrometer in the case when not in use. A case is included. Okay, just a leather, stitched case. Keep the micrometer clean. Yeah, sure, of course. Do not over tighten it. Luckily, it does have that clutch feature that demonstrated earlier. Over tightening can cause inaccurate measurements. Put the micrometer out of calibration and damage the micrometer. Periodically verify the micrometer is properly calibrated. To check the calibration, gently tighten the knurled handle against the post, which makes contact with the anvil. The digital display should read 0.000. Click Set to reset the micrometer to 0. Sure, of course, you're going to make sure that when you're in the 0 position every single time. Using and reading the ultimate micrometer. Place the cut key with the flatter side down, that's called the root, in between the post and the anvil. The center of the first cut should engage the anvil. Holding the key flat, straight and flat, gently tighten the knurled handle. Don't over-tighten. Over-tightening will result in inaccurate measurements, etc. Read the measurement on the digital display and repeat the process for subsequent cuts. So first of all, if you are a locksmith, either seasoned or new, for purposes of demonstrating, there's a link below this video to the key spacing, depth and spacing chart for a typical Schlage system. We're all familiar with the depth of a cut, and I have a Schlage original key blank here. We're all familiar with the depth of the cut. Okay, great. 357, 331. Well, the depth of the cut is just one component of what's important about a cut of a depth. In the world of locksmithing, there's something called the root depth, which is the root of the key to the depth of the cut. The other piece of information that you have to know is the effective plug diameter. For Schlage, that's 0.500. It's a half inch. Many other systems, too, are half inch, but there are others that are other than half inch. Corbin Russwin has some stuff that's 0.509, etc. For purposes of the explanation, 0.5 is our effective plug diameter, which is a theoretical, which is the size of the plug incorporating a margin around the circumference, a typical tolerance around the circumference of the plug, giving you a theoretical number. The key's not going to sit quite perfect in the broaching of the cylinder plug. There needs to be some margin around the entire plug itself. Where the plug sits in the shell is not going to be perfectly in the center. So the effective plug diameter is a theoretical dimension, really. That's 0.5, and we're going to just call it 0.5. Now, to further demonstrate that, if you look at the depth and spacing chart for Schlage, you're going to see the bottom pins. Those are the lengths. So our first cut on this Schlage key was a 3. Everybody's familiar with a 3 is going to be the depth of that cut. Well, if you're trying to originate a key by code, you're not going to easily measure a 3 depth. If you have a key gauge or some other way to determine that that's a 3, then great. But if you don't, and what you know is the root depth for a Schlage, if you look at the root depth on a Schlage, Remember 0.5, our effective plug diameter. You already know that a 3 is 210 thousandths deep. That gives us a root diameter of 0.29. 0.29 plus 0.21 is 0.5. And that's where that all ties together. The micrometer is a tool that's going to be used to determine the root depth. And if you know the root depth, and you know the effective plug diameter, meaning you're working within a system, then you're not going to have any trouble at all. So the point of this demonstration is to pull that tool out, and then we're going to insert our key between the, what do they call it, the anvil and the post? Is that what they call it? Yeah, the post and the anvil. You've got to study it there. It's going to look like a post and an anvil, I suppose. We're going to open that way up and go to our first depth. Got to open the tool up a bit more. And it will express in either inches or millimeters. Of course, everything we do is in inches in the sense that it's decimal. So I'm going to place it in there. And I'm going to tighten, but I'm going to bring it down so I can see it. Bear with me one moment. Just going to calibrate the tool. Okay. Now we're going to open it. I'm using the small part of that handle to open it up. I'm going to place my key blank in there. I'm going to begin to tighten it. Okay. And admittedly, it's a bit difficult to get the tool one hand and try to turn it and hold the key in. It'd be easier just to lay it on my desk. But getting the tool put in, you'll see that we've got it set to the 3 on our first cut. That first cut is a 3. Oh. Three is the first cut. Now, if you recall from our chart, our root depth was 0.29. Well, that's it's going to be close to 0.29 as humanly possible. And that is 1/1000th, far less than 1/1000th of an inch. It is 5/100,000ths of an inch off of tolerance. So Schlage is cutting these incredibly accurate. And that's how you're going to use this tool to determine your root depth. Okay? Using a micrometer or a caliper. I'm going to use my caliper now just for the sake of going head to head to see if I can, with my caliper, give me the same sort of accuracy. So the first problem I'm encountering is I know I'm not holding the key in perfectly straight. I can feel it move on me ever so slightly, which is me. But yeah, my caliper's 0.29. So you'll notice from the depth and spacing chart that you have a value that is defined as you've got your cut and then you've got your root, your 0.031. That is why I'm able to use my caliper, because I can get into the 031 area. Not every manufacturer is going to have that same plateaued, flattened off area, but my caliper worked sublimely for that without any trouble at all. The only real advantage, I mean, it's on the money. It's perfect, 0.290. The advantage of the micrometer from HPC, however, is it's going to allow you to work with all kinds of systems where you don't really have you know, the post is really what's most advantageous because the key is going to sit quite flat and you're going to be given an incredibly accurate cut. Let's check the 5 cut on here since we're here. I'm just getting it set onto the tool. 0.5 is a 260. I've got that set at 0.5, or the 5 cut. And sure enough, 0.260. So again, Schlage is incredibly accurate with how they're cutting this stuff. Okay. So at the end of the day, if you have a need for measuring the root depth and you want to be able to do it in a very elegant way, and do so in such a way that will be a little bit easier to use without rocking the key back and forth, this tool is certainly going to be exceptional at that. Okay, and I would very much recommend the tool in that regard. I think the majority of locksmiths, though, are going to run around with a tool like this. But if you have the leisure to use either, I would indeed suggest that you consider this HPC micrometer. It's going to hold the key a lot better, and it's going to certainly be more accurate. It'll be far more accurate than any sort of keying that you'll be able to, or tolerance that you'll be able to maintain over the cut key. So it will absolutely be the most accurate tool that you'll be working with. The reason that I like HPC, outside of the fact that they make very good quality, extremely high quality locksmithing tools, is because they, as a company that sells locksmithing tools, they're very responsive. I did have to ask them what that USB port was for. I knew it wasn't a rechargeable battery because I had seen the battery, but I did want to know from them, the answer. And regardless, they always respond. I always get an answer from them, whether it be on this battery for their SKM 2D or it be some question about the Blitz machine that we own. And if you're a locksmith, you obviously know HPC for the Blitz machine, their code cutting machine, that every professional lock shop is going to have one, if not multiple units. There's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the HPC products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog where you can review all tools HPC. So at the end of the day, I would recommend this tool. I would also honestly say that you could certainly solve the problem less expensively, even if you bought a high-end mechanical caliper like I have. It would be noticeably less expensive than this model, although this tool is exquisitely and elegantly intended for its application. And if you're measuring key blanks, your other tool is not going to be as good. The question will be, can you justify the additional cost? I own it because I use it, is why. I don't use my caliper for doing key blank root depth measurements, even though I could, is just the simple bottom line. If you have any questions on the HPC SKM-2D, root depth micrometer, or any other. Now, the other thing is, I probably... I got to tell you, I bet you could also make a good go at measuring pins with this. I haven't tried it, but because that is scalloped underneath, you should be able to rest your pin right inside of there with the post towards the flat end of the pin, and then tighten and very accurately measure your pins. Using a caliper for measuring pins is really good when you are getting close, like the difference between a 4 and a 5. But if you've got a universal kit, a Lab 3000s kit, you might want something a bit more accurate to measure pins. And in fact, this tool may very likely be exquisitely placed for measuring pins. You'd have to make sure the tip was right on the end of the anvil, but I think you could be able to accomplish that. Any questions on the SKM-2D micrometer from HPC or any other HPC product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.